All right, we are live and ready to start whenever you guys are.
All right. I will call to order this meeting of the Sharonville Planning Commission. Mr. Creech, could we have roll call, please? You need to unmute yourself, John.
Mayor Hardman,
Here.
Mr. Lucas,
Here.
Mr. Martin,
Here.
Mr. Schutte,
Here.
and Mr. Knight.
Here.
The minutes of our March 11, 2020 meeting were distributed to all members of the Planning Commission. Are there any additions or corrections to those meetings as printed and distributed? Seeing none and without objection, they will be approved as written and distributed. We have no old business, which means we're going straight to new business. John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our first item is going to be a presentation tonight of the Downtown Sharonville Loop Streetscape Conceptual Master Plan. And that project is actually funded in part, or it was funded entirely by a grant from Hamilton County, which Sarah applied for. We went through a process. We interviewed consultants. We hired Kleinger's Associates. Lynn Nischwitz is the lead on that project, as well as she has support from Mark Nolt. You may remember him. He did some work for us for the Safe Routes to School program. So I just want to say one thing about this conceptual master plan is it's kind of, it takes some things from the 2010 plan that was prepared. Some of those things were implemented, some things just were not. But we've kind of revisited some of the things from that plan. We got some new ideas in there, particularly about some traffic calming strategies. And Lynn will go over that. So I want us to think about this as kind of a project that identifies a lot of different things, or a lot of different things that the city can pick and choose for, depending on, you know, what we think is suitable to move forward on in the future, depending on, you know, as moving into the future based on budgets, finances, council, and priorities of the city. So with that, Jim, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just, if the board or if Kevin's so inclined, is there any reason why we shouldn't do the other two items first? So I'm not sure if we have anybody on the line for those two items, but this may take longer than those two combined. And should we do the other? Should we do the other two first and come back to this? That's up to the
right.
board.
We do have 8 attendees.
I have no objection to that. Mark and Lynn, are you okay with that?
That's fine.
Fine with me.
Then let's go ahead then, and we'll skip to our second item of new business, John.
Yep.
And we will be right back with that.
All right, sorry about that, guys. I promised you an early meeting. The first item on the agenda was submitted by Nancy Talem of Brighter Vehicles and Sales, and property owner Vicky Alonso, for the property 3085 East Crescentville Road in Sharonville, Ohio, in the ITC Reading Road Northern Gateway overlay. Nancy Talem of Brighter Vehicle Sales LLC is requesting a conditional use permit in the ITC Reading Road Northern Overlay Gateway zoning district to permit a modified use of the current use of the property to allow truck sales on the property with minor modifications to the site plan. According to Sharonville Codified Ordinance 1137.06A1, the Reading Road Gateway North Overlay District was established to improve the environment along the major entrance of the city of Sharonville along the Butler County line. Sharonville ordinance within the Reading Road Gateway North Overlay District permit outdoor yard use contingent that the area is totally obscured from public view with visual barriers no less than 6 feet or higher than 10 feet in height. The city's non-conforming use codes were established to control non-conformities and minimize the adverse effects of adjoining properties and to bring about eventual conformity of the property. So looking at the Reading Road Northern Gateway Overlay District, it's a unique area within the city. It was created in 2004. We've had a discussion about this overlay district in previous years. The fact that change has been gradual. The main key for the overlay district is that outdoor storage is permitted through proper siting and design and screening. Design improvements include visual barriers between 6 and 10 feet, landscaping requirements, the installation of sidewalks or pedestrian ways, which I put an asterisk on because we've had previous discussions about that, and the storage of parking only on paved surfaces, and that all parking areas be delineated by a permanent curb. The site plan proposal is to modify the use for truck sales to stripe 10 parking spots on a pre-existing concrete slab, maintain the existing chain link fence around the property, and it does not include any paving of the driveway. We've notified all property owners within 100 feet, and we have not received any calls or comments. So these are images submitted by the applicant from the realtor company. This is what the property currently looks like. As you can see, there is trailer use on the property. The property is located on the Sharonville-Butler County line, and it is surrounded by ITC uses. As you can see in this image, there are various ITC and outdoor storage units. The use of outdoor storage is not something really in question. It's more just whether the landscaping and screening is sufficient for the Reading Road Northern Overlay Gateway District. Kind of a mouthful. So this is the site plan of what they're proposing to do. As you can see, these are the parking spots they plan on paving, or not paving, striping. And this is the existing driveway, which there was no plan mentioned on anything to be done with that. And there's an additional driveway here, but it looks like it's being blocked off and not in use. There was no description of what is planning to be used with this driveway. So when reviewing the application, staff recommends Planning Commission consider that the driveway area in and out of the parcel to the customer and parking area be paved and delineated with permanent curbing as required by section 1137.06C2, and that the Reading Road driveway shall not be utilized unless paved or improved as section or comment 1 would require for the East Crescentville driveway. Installation of privacy fence screening is suggested, or installation of shrubbery along the fence to add some sort of visual barrier and increase the screening area along Reading Road. Also planting landscape near the driveway to satisfy the landscape plan, and that all improvements be maintained and installed in good repair to remain in compliance with the conditional use. City would also like to note that conditional use approval is not the same thing as a building permit. They would still need to apply for paving permits. They would still need to apply for certificate of occupancy with the property. So with that, I believe the applicant is here. I'm looking now, I don't see them listed as a panelist, so I can promote them. I'm gonna unmute Rody and allow him to tell me if someone else should be talking. All right, Rody, you're unmuted. Would you like to address the board, or is there someone else I need to unmute to speak on behalf of this case?
I'm trying to help Rob Tankersley get into the meeting, guys, so I'm on my phone. Sorry about that.
So Sarah, it looks like Thomas Moore is raising his hand. Is Mr. Moore?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Are you here to speak with on behalf of?
I am. So thank you so much for your time, and you know, we're excited to hopefully get this done with the city of Sharonville. We have been a landowner in the city of Sharonville since 1986 on Community Circle. We operate a truck maintenance shop down the street. And as was mentioned, we don't plan on materially changing the property. Really what we will be doing is utilizing the property as a used truck dealership. And we plan on continuing to utilize the current modular office that is identified here. We would like to go ahead and stripe 10 parking spaces. And I mean, really what we will be doing is basically parking, call it 200 trucks or so, and it'll be a truck dealership. We do believe that it is an improvement to the area. It should be something that's not exactly an eyesore. We're happy to work with you as far as working along the overlay district, but as far as it being considered outdoor storage, I wouldn't really go along the lines that viewing a truck is going to create some issues, but I will defer to you and look forward to working through this issue with you.
Yeah, I don't think it's, the use is not necessarily, I think, an issue here, considering what the use of that property is right now. I think it's the bigger question is whenever there is a change in use, there's a requirement to kind of step up the maintenance and the look of the property as it is kind of the gateway into the city. And I think that's some of the conditions that are being talked about or being suggested by the building and planning department. There is currently some concrete pad around the office area. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that is going to that's going to be maintained and then striped for customer parking.
Correct.
And employee parking too, or is it just customer parking? Or
it'll be mainly customer parking.
however, the driveway into that area is not all the way paved to your parking area. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that is one of the issues that I think we'd like to see improved would be there be concrete paving from the entryway all the way to the paved parking area. Is there any issues or concerns about doing that?
I think that's a reasonable ask. I'm going to have to discuss with the owner of the property. We will just be leasing the property, and really those improvements will have to be done by the owner.
Okay. I mean, those are the kinds of things that we're going to be looking at. But I mean, you obviously, I think, heard Sarah discussing the conditions that we'd be looking at if to permit this change in use, which it is. And it gives us the opportunity at this point to kind of say, here's what we need to make this happen. The Reading Road driveway, is there no intention to use that? What is going on with regard to that entryway?
We will not be utilizing that.
There is, go ahead.
It will just be access off of Crescentville Road.
Okay. And there is a gate in that fence right now off of Reading. Is that correct, Sarah? If you know, or maybe you know, Tom.
There is a gate. It appears to be padlocked, but yeah, and there are trailers that backed up to it, so I don't think they use it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. It's the property itself is not a good thing to see when you enter into Sharonville. I mean, that's plain and simple, and I think that's one of the things that we'd be looking, at least from my standpoint, what I'd be looking for in order to approve a change in use would be what would be the plan on your part or the owner's part in order to improve that, in order to allow the new usage to take place. And I think some of the conditions that have been shared with by the building and planning, by our community development department are appropriate. And that's paving the driveway area, permanent curbing, that the driveway area up to the, there's a summary right there. I mean, I think those are all fair and legitimate issues that are going to address the aesthetic issues and make this a more inviting area in order to engage in that use. So I guess the question is, are all those conditions ones that you or the owner have had discussions with prior to this meeting and feel like you can abide by, or do you need additional time to discuss them before we make a vote on them, or?
So we have not discussed paving the property. That's going to create kind of an issue on my end because I need to access the property and get up and running as soon as possible. As far as paving goes, it's going to be more expensive and it's just going to delay the commencement of the lease.
And just so we're clear, it's not the whole we're not talking about paving the entire property. We're talking about.
Understand that, but it's going to require permits, a lot of work, and I'm not sure if the landlord's even going to agree to it. So I wish the landlord was present to kind of have a more in-depth conversation, but that is definitely something that we're going to have to discuss, and it quite possibly will be a deal breaker.
Is Sarah, is that what?
The realtor, I believe Rody is the realtor. He raised his hand, so he's unmuted and he can talk.
Is it Rody?
It's Roddy.
Roddy, give us your name and your employment and.
It's Roddy McGeechan. I'm with Square Foot Commercial. I'm the listing agent with Vicky Aloisio for the property, and we've been working with Ryder on this deal over the last 45 days. And correct me if I'm wrong. When we're talking about paving, Kevin, we're talking about that entrance on Crescentville, basically connecting the drive lane up to the office building is what you're talking about, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, gotcha. And Thomas, I think I can have a pretty quick conversation with Vicky. I'm not sure if she's on this call, but I think, it's a very small area. We already have a pretty good base of gravel there. So I don't think it's a deal killer, but I think we can get an answer pretty quickly. And then Kevin, you mentioned also, with part of the district is landscaping. We would need to understand if there's going to be more requirements. There's a lot of trees on the south end of the site where USPS, we have a tree line there. There's a tree line abutting Cohen to the southeast there. And then we already have a pretty good amount of trees on the north side along Crescentville, and included in this property, if you go back to the main aerial, the second curb cut, I think if you go back one more, so that curb cut on the far left as well is included. And I think Thomas, they would plan on using those two curb cuts on Crescentville, but not use the curb cut on Reading Road. That's hazardous trying to turn out of there. But they have no intention of using that Reading Road curb cut.
So I from my standpoint, I think what I'd be talking about is some kind of plan that would shield the view of the site, which is what the overlay kind of requires, and by way of an appropriate landscaping and/or some type of privacy fence screening along the entire fence line along Crescentville and Reading Road. So, obviously there is some of that tree line that exists currently on part of Crescentville. So that would most likely sufficiently provide a blockage on that particular area. But I think, as you can see, Sarah is kind of showing that what we have along that entire stretch there is open fencing, as well as right on the corner Ideally, I'd like to see if there's no usage or no plan for usage of that Reading Road exit, that be dealt with accordingly, because that's probably one of the most unsightly pieces of the property, is the fact that you have a non-existent paved surface that's crumbling and falling apart, and obviously not very attractive to folks entering into the city.
I'd like to make a suggestion. This is Bill Martin. I would suggest that we permanently close that curb cut. I think it's hazardous, and I don't think it really has any utility for anybody. So why don't we just close it and be done with it?
I would agree. If there's
Kevin, I think that's a conversation, we can have with the owner. And I know that we've been working with the owner's attorney. I mean, it's not being used. I don't think, Satellite has been there for, I think, close to almost 20 years. And I don't think they've ever used that. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think that the biggest thing, we'll just need to understand what is going to be required. And given the timeline of Ryder and Thomas, how fast, can we get this thing approved, assuming we do what is required?
Yeah, and I think we can deal. I mean, if everybody is in a position where they're saying they can do this, I think we're willing to, and we have, at least in the past, been willing to make conditional use variances with a time frame by which these certain conditions need to be completed. So in other words, that business can start with the condition that you will complete these types of activities within a period of 6-7 months. So in order to give that time for you to continue to start operations with the plan that you will comply with the conditional variances that allow it to take place. So I'm not too, so from the standpoint of the concern about getting up and running and getting up to work and starting, I don't see that being necessarily a problem. If everybody's saying, yes, we feel like we can do these things, we just need a period of time to do it and complete it. If that's what I think I'm hearing.
Gotcha.
John, did you have?
Yeah, I was just going to add to that, Mr. Mayor. I mean, that's the same thing we did with 2 Men in a Truck when they located a little further down. I think we gave them, there were some improvements they had to do. They put up a fence, and they actually had storage containers stacked in the back, and I know that was a concern. So they actually had to put a full privacy fence up, but we did give them 6 months to comply with all those conditions.
Mr. Schutte, did you?
Yeah, I had a couple questions. Thank you. So, first question, I guess, is what are the boundaries, and how far back do the boundaries of the overlay go onto this property from Reading Road there?
So the overlay.
We don't have the overlay map here, but this particular property, because it abuts Reading Road with that narrow, the narrowest part of that lot, it is included in the overlay.
Okay, so
the bulk of the property does face Crescentville Road.
So the whole property is included in the overlay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then what can you speak? I think it was Thomas, a little bit about like what kind of trucks will you be selling from the property? I mean, in the pictures we have, it's mainly trailers. It looks like, the back end of the truck, whatever, right? But what kind of vehicles is it that you'll be selling there?
So we won't actually have any trailers there. They'll just be tractors that we will sell out of it. It's going to be basically a used truck sales dealership.
Okay, so it's not like a box truck. It's just the
tractor
or whatever it is, the front part of the tractor. Okay, gotcha.
Will the trailers remain, or will they be taken away?
All that is going to be taken away. The only thing that's going to stay is the existing kind of 1,500 square foot modular office trailer. So I mean, it's going to look clean. It's going to be tractors, organized, parked, and it's going to be a dealership. It's not going to look like outside storage.
Yeah, so I mean, I think seems to me that's a step up, and you all want to, if you're selling,
Right.
you want people to look and say, "Wow, it's a beautiful looking truck. I want to buy that," right?
Right.
And so we're basically saying, because there was a little bit of discrepancy in what's on the PowerPoint here recommendations and versus what was in the document. And so I just wanted to verify, because in the document that was circulated, it says, applicant shall pave driveway area in and out of lot and parking lot area. But we're just talking about the driveway, right? To connect
And the parking lot area around the
10 spaces.
the 10 spaces that are the parking spaces.
Mhm.
is that not paved or
Or
already?
it's paved right now, apparently.
Okay.
So it would need to be maintained and paved.
But I don't think any of us would have any problem with adding those striped parking spaces, right? And that's
No.
easy. And then we're also asking them to put in privacy fence screening, shrubbery, and landscaping on that exit onto 42 and/or close that cut,
Or,
right?
yeah, privacy fence screen or installation of, the purpose, either privacy screen or shrubbery, something that's going to protect the view. And I wouldn't necessarily have, the change in sales is such that it will improve it, but the lack of pavement that those vehicles are going to be on is is the larger problem. I mean, if this was a paved, used truck kind of lot, it would be a different story. But I don't think anyone's looking to, and that's not what's being requested. And I think everybody, what I've heard very clearly, is that that's not within, I think, anybody's financial model to completely pave this parcel for the purpose of staging and parking the vehicles. Even though they will be, obviously it'll look nicer than what's there now with tractor trailers, it's still such that I think there needs to be, considering it is basically not a paved lot, it's a dirt gravel lot, that there needs to be a screening in order to protect that particular, at times unsightly issues that exist there. So I think that's the bigger issue, Sam, as opposed to the tractor trailers that will be there now, is that the lot itself is not going to have the kind of improvements that you would find aesthetically pleasing necessarily.
Okay. But it is an option. I mean, I guess we can at least leave it as an option to them. If they did decide to pave the whole lot, then we might not require such and such screening. Right?
I disagree with that, because once again, we're dealing with a entryway into our city, the gateway, and we got a chance to upgrade our city. And I think we should stick to the standards. I mean, it's a corner lot. It's a busy intersection. I don't think there's any reason at all to waver off of our standards here.
I totally agree, Bill.
Sorry, go ahead, Mayor.
So, Bill, I totally agree with you based on what is proposed now. But if someone were to come to us with a designed, paved, used car lot that with landscaping and other kind of things, I think we would have conversations about whether or not we needed to have privacy fencing or not around it. But that's not what's proposed before us, right?
I agree with that. I mean, obviously, if we can make it aesthetically pleasing, I think that's the object of our gateways, is to kind of clean the area up and make it look presentable, which will encourage other type of that development. So I think we have to have some sort of a standard here, but we can make some allowances for that type of situation.
Yeah. Roddy, I think I see your hand up there.
Yes, Mayor. Vicky, the site owner, Vicky Aloisio, she is dialed in. Sarah, I don't know if you can see her as on the call, but she dialed in from like a 513-720-5859. Do you see that number on the call?
We do.
If you could activate Vicky, she would like to speak for a minute as well.
Sarah, are you able to do that?
Hello. Sorry.
Hi, Vicky, if you could just give us your name and your address.
Vicky Vicky Aloisio.
Okay.
And
Go ahead,
what was the other question?
Apparently you had a comment or you wanted to add something to the discussion?
Well, I was listening to you talk about the gate on Cincinnati Dayton Reading Road. That has never been used, and it's not supposed to be used. We can make sure that we can replace that, I guess, with a fence. The blacktopping and adding the paving back to the office is not a problem. We're going to gravel the lot also before Ryder moves in, and the landscaping is not a problem.
Okay. Are there other, okay.
What about
Thank you.
what about the privacy fencing? Because that was a requirement too, right?
It's either privacy fence or landscaping that would
Okay.
shield the, I mean, would,
How you want an additional fence to the one that's there? You mean a privacy fence instead of what's there, or?
So for just background, because John, I mentioned 2 Men in a Truck, when they were required to put up some visual screening, they put in privacy slats to their fence. We realize you are actually selling your vehicles instead of just storing stuff on your property. So you may want a little bit of, like, not entirely a privacy fence. So just the idea of potentially just putting trees along the fence or bushes along the fence line to improve the screening along the road to add more appeal to the road. You guys can open up a discussion of whether you want full-on privacy slats, or just bushes along the tree line. But we put in our description some sort of recommendation for you guys to choose what that would be. Because currently it's a visual barrier between 6 and 10 feet.
Okay, I would opt for landscaping is what I would prefer, but.
And Mr. Mayor, when we talk about the landscaping, we're really talking about landscaping to hide the parking lot that'll remain gravel, the vehicles parked there. I mean, obviously they're selling these vehicles, so they want those to be seen. So kind of, I'm thinking like some low, I don't want to say ground cover, but lower level plantings that maybe would get up to a maximum of 5 to 6 feet high in height along the outside or the inside of the fence, wherever would be appropriate.
It won't be that much.
Any thoughts from the Planning Commission on that?
I think that if it would aesthetically improve the area, I'm for that. I think there's ways to do it with a combination of shrubs and maybe some spotted trees.
Sure.
They have some height, but that it wouldn't block it so they could still see it, but to just give it some aesthetic pleasing appearance. So,
Mr. Tankersley, I see your hand up. Sarah, do you need to do anything to let Mr. Tankersley in to talk?
He's perfect.
But I've allowed him to talk.
Mr. Tankersley?
Thank you. I was wondering, is it going to be a truck sales like?
We apparently lost him.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. There we go. Is this going to be a truck lot like what's over on Windish right now?
Windish, a million trucks.
I know there's a Ryder truck sales over on Windish. Is it going to be similar to? That's what I'm asking. Is it going to be similar like that, to where it's just tractor trailers instead of tractor trailers and box trucks?
Thomas, do you have
I'm not exactly familiar with that property, but it's going to be similar. It's going to be a Ryder used truck sales dealership.
Okay.
Where what's the Windish? How do you spell that?
Windish. It's over off of Crescentville. I know there used to be a Ryder truck sales over there.
It should be very similar.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the planning commission members? Mr. Lucas?
Just rather than them bringing back a landscaping plan and for our review, I would just suggest that Community Development Office review it like we've done in the past.
That was going to be my suggestion as well as a time frame for completion. Any other comments? All right, so I will entertain a motion.
One
to-
comment. One comment.
Yeah, who is that?
Bill Knight.
Yes, Mr. Knight, sorry.
We were talking, I think you were talking 6 months to do this, but with landscaping, I think we need to maybe think about cutting that down to 3 months. The 6 months, you'll be planting in November right in there.
Okay, let me just ask of Tom and Roddy, if you think that's 3 months, if based on what you've heard us discussing, 3 months would be sufficient to get.
So I'll just say I need to get up and running as soon as possible. So any leeway you can give me where would maybe buys us some time to work with the owner and improve the property, it would be very helpful. But if it's going to take 3 months, that could possibly be a deal killer.
No. We're not talking about for you to get up and running. You can get up and running now.
Okay.
The 3 months would be in order to complete the improvements to the property, the landscaping, the paving to the parking lot area.
I would say the only contingency is the permitting process. I'm not very familiar with the city of Sharonville and how that would work.
We move quickly on that front.
Okay. Well, could we have 3 months after permits are pulled?
Well, I mean, we don't know when you'll ask for the permit, so that's
Okay.
So that's a hard one to say yes to, because if you don't ask for the permits for another year, then we've got a problem. So I guess we're getting a little. It sounds like it's feasible that if we place a time frame on it that takes us into it's May now, June, into September, so about a 4 month time period, that would be when your planning or anything else season is going to end. So I think that would be reasonable for completion of some of these improvements. And then obviously if it's not there but you're in good faith making your effort to there, you can always come back to the planning commission and we can extend it. But I think that's where we're heading, unless we hear from anyone that's saying that's completely impossible at this point. Anyone? All right. So I'll entertain a motion that we approve the conditional use request with the conditions that the applicant shall pave driveway in and out of the lot and in the parking lot area around the office space, and it should be delineated by permanent curbing, that there be installation of either privacy fence screening or shrubbery along the fence line on both Crescentville as well as the Reading Road, Cincinnati Dayton Road area, with that plan to be approved through the Community Development Department based on the purposes that we shared tonight, including that the gate along Reading Road be terminated in favor of a fence, as well as the concrete driveway that leads out to the road also be demolished or replanted with grass and other plantings, landscaping in that area. The plant landscaping near driveway entrances as part of the landscape plan to be approved through the Community Development Department. And then all improvements be installed and maintained in good repair and replaced as necessary to remain in compliance with the approved conditional use. Is there a motion to that effect from any members of the planning commission?
Can I ask a quick question, Kevin?
Well, let's get the discussion. Yeah, Mr. Shooty, do you want to add something to the motion, or?
I just want to make sure. So are we saying he can operate and we're going to allow customers?
Sorry, I didn't add that. So we'll allow operation of the conditional use, assuming that all of these conditions are met within a period of 4 months of tonight's approval. Is there a motion? I think I saw Mr. Lucas's hand moving it. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Martin. Any further discussion with regard to the motion?
Mayor, I've got one quick question real quick.
Yes, Mr. Tankersley.
Signage.
Yes.
Is that something we can discuss now or something we can wait on?
Yeah, I think that'll be up to whether or not their signage complies with the zoning code, and then it would have to come to the zoning board if it doesn't. Am I correct with that, John? I don't think that's something we deal with here.
Well, they do have an existing pole sign there. I imagine they were probably going to switch that out, maybe do something else. But yeah, typically because of the zoning there, they are allowed to put up a sign as long as it meets all the requirements.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any other discussion? Do Roddy and Vicky and Tom, do you all understand what we are requesting here? Just so.
Mayor, yes, we do. And I think just an outline summary of what, action items for us on our end would be helpful. Or some sort of, if Sarah could just give us a bullet point list of here's everything we need to do. I don't foresee it being a problem.
Absolutely. I think they'll do a great job of follow-up, assuming this gets passed tonight. Right, Sarah?
Yeah, there will be a follow-up letter. I usually send it the week of. There might be a little bit of delays, but you should get a letter with everything on it and your requirements.
Thank you. Any further discussion? We'll take a roll call, please.
Motion to approve with conditions, Mayor Hardman,
Yes.
Mr. Lucas,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Shooty,
Yes.
Mr. Knight.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you guys are free to leave if you would like. I will send you a letter to the people whose address are listed in the application. But if not, have a great rest of your night. So the third item on the agenda was submitted by Larry Coates of Colonial Gardens on behalf of Colonial Gardens Investors. Fred Cantor should be on the line to comment as the property is located at 11414 Lebanon, Sharonville, Ohio.
Yeah. See if it is.
So Barry Coates, on behalf of Colonial Gardens Investors LLC, is requesting approval to modify the Colonial Gardens site plan in the RMD zoning district. Colonial Gardens is seeking planning commission approval to add a new office building and fitness room. Planning commission has the ability to modify an approved site plan, which could include deviations to the setback calculations prescribed in the RMD zoning district. The new proposed building would be 24 feet 6 inches away from the property line in the rear portion of the property. The new building would have a variety of building facade material and be used for an apartment leasing office and residential services such as laundry rooms, gyms, and locations for package delivery. We've notified all neighbors within 100 feet of the property, and we've only spoken with one neighbor. Here is a site plan of the property. This right here is US 42 Lebanon Road. There's an existing parking lot and it's an existing building. This is where the new property would be. It is in the very back corner of the property. As noted, it's 24.6 or 24 and a half feet away from the side property line. Here's a landscaping plan of what the applicant is proposing to do on the site. There will be additional parking added for the new building, but it's mainly to serve the residents of the building. This is what the floor plan and the inside of the building would look like. As mentioned before, it would include laundry room, package storage, and the typical apartment uses, such as a fitness room. This is what the elevation looks like of the new building, as described, the mixture of building material. And here is a colored elevation of what the property would look like with the landscaping added. We only received one call from a neighbor across the street located at 11423 Lebanon Road. And she noted that due to the separation of the road and the location, she had no objection to the work being requested. So in summary, Colonial Gardens is seeking approval to modify their site plan to include an office fitness room. If approved, the applicant would still need to apply for a building permit and still need to get valid certificate of occupancy to occupy the building. And if Planning Commission is considering to approve this site plan change, staff wanted to recommend that all improvement and work indicated on the construction drawings and documents be approved as part of the site plan review, be installed and maintained in good repair and replaced as necessary to remain in compliance with the approved site plan. So Fred, if you would like to speak, I can try to promote you, or I don't see you as an option to promote to speak. So I would assume that would mean that Barry would like to speak. So let me allow Barry to speak. Barry is the our applicant and the designer of the plan. Josh, I don't know why I'm having trouble unmuting Barry.
I have a hand up from, I'm assuming that's Mr. Is that?
Yes, I'm Barry Coates. I'm on the phone.
Okay.
I didn't get this to work on my iPhone video, so I'm just
All right.
on the phone. I can see you. I can see you on the screen, but I can't do that. I don't.
We can hear you.
Get it
That's
to work
quite all
on
right.
my iPhone. Okay. Is Fred there? I mean, is Fred?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Fred.
Yes, I can.
Although
Yes,
it
I
says
can.
you're Kathy, but I think we'll take.
Okay.
You don't sound like a Kathy, so we'll assume you're Fred.
Oh, my wife's computer. Yeah, my wife's computer. Thank you.
That's quite all right.
well-
Go ahead, Barry or Fred. You have the floor.
well,
if there's anything
well,
you'd like to add.
Yeah. Thanks for having us here tonight. I'm Fred Cantor, a partner in Rookwood Properties, and as you know, we've been developing and buying and investing in projects in Sharonville for many years. We bought Colonial Gardens last year as a part of a portfolio of 6 different properties from Northern Kentucky to Dayton, and this is the smallest of those 6, and it was owned and operated for many years by an out-of-town owner in Florida. There are a lot of things we want to do with this property, and consistent with how we operate our properties. We're going to upgrade the property. We've already replaced the windows and sliding glass doors, we recognize it had a kind of a substandard leasing office in the basement of one of the front buildings. So we decided, both for marketing purposes and for the comfort of our employees, we wanted to build a small, and this is a small clubhouse. You don't get much smaller, but it does have a fitness room, an office, and package storage, bathroom and a laundry room. So we think by putting it in that northeast corner, it provides the best visibility from the road, and it'll just kind of enhance the character of this property. And even though it does sit outside the building setback, but it'll be a nice new building, and we think it's just part of continuing to upgrade this property. So I'm happy to entertain any questions. And of course, Barry Coates, who did the drawings, is here to answer any questions as well.
Any planning commission members have a question? Mr. Lucas.
A comment and a question. First of all, Fred, I think this is a wonderful improvement to the property.
Thank you.
My only question would be, is there any existing parking spots that you may be losing for the community as part of this project? And I'll share with you why I am slightly concerned with that if the answer is yes.
Well, we let me back up. We did add several parking spaces last year, and I can't tell you exactly where. The district manager is not here with me, but we did add some additional parking. This is where, and it's a long story, but where this drive was a dumpster enclosure. Now, we inadvertently put in a new dumpster enclosure recently that is in the way of this, to be quite frank. And the reason it got put in the wrong place, this was during the lockdown. All of our company was working from home. People weren't going out. Contractor had a contract. He went and put it where he thought it was supposed to be. And it was just one of the casualties of trying to work remotely. So we will be having to remove that dumpster enclosure and put it somewhere else. But I don't think we're losing that end piece. But Barry, do you think we're going to be losing any other spaces?
No, we're actually not losing any spaces at all, because the one drive starts at the end of the parking area, and the other one goes into the drive where there's no parking on that side. So we're not losing any spots.
The reason I ask is I'm not sure if you're aware, since you're a relatively new owner, but the city has planned and has money for a Route 42 bike path, and there's currently parking along the roadway that's in the city's right of way that you'll be losing as part of that project. So that's why I was asking the question. I'm not sure how many spots. I think there's probably 7 or 8 cars that currently park in the right of way, I'm guessing. But again, I was just asking for that reason, because those spots will likely disappear in the near future, in the next 2 or 3 years, probably.
Well, that's good to know, because then maybe we look for some spots places where we can add some additional parking to take the place of those if needed. Thank you.
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like this building is basically going to be built in what is currently a grass area behind that one building.
Correct.
Yeah, or at the end of the parking lot.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, I have to go back here. Other questions from Planning Commission members?
I think that is a huge improvement. It's an older complex. It does need some new life breathed into it right there. And I think this is going to work quite well.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Anyone else?
If you take those parking spots away along 42, I have seen renters parking in the office complex just right next door to the north. Has that property owner made any complaints with the tenants parking over there?
We've not heard of that, and we didn't know that any of our residents parked there, but I guess I'm not surprised. One advantage is, I guess, for nights and weekends, when this office and clubhouse is closed, we will pick up at least those 4 spaces, or 5 counting the handicap space. But parking is an issue, and I think we'll continue to work on that. And I'll probably ask Barry to take a look at where we can squeeze in some more spaces. If we're going to, when we build this, if we're going to be doing some paving, we might see where we can get some more spaces in anticipation. And I was always curious about the property to the north. Are those office condominiums or are those rental offices? Does anyone know?
They are doctor's offices.
Okay.
Dentists.
I believe those are owner occupied condominiums, I believe.
Is that right? I thought they might be. Okay. And that's a nice property there to be next to.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve the request with the conditions as referenced by the staff's recommendations? I'll make the motion. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Lucas. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Motion to approve with conditions, Mayor Hardman,
Yes.
Mr. Lucas,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Schutte,
Yes.
and Mr. Knight.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye, Barry.
I think we're back to the Sharonville Loop Streetscape Master Plan, correct?
So,
Yeah.
John, did you already introduce Resolution 2020? Does the board or Planning Commission want me to review on Resolution 2020, or should we go ahead and let Lynn share her screen to start presenting?
No, I think we can go ahead and let Lynn jump right into it. I mean, everyone, I think anyone have any questions up until this point? I kind of started introducing it, but I think we'll just let her go right into it. So if you want to.
I think you mean Resolution 2002, right?
2002. So yeah, what this will be is if the Planning Commission reviews this and they're happy with the plan up to this point and they approve it, then it would go on to City Council in the form of a resolution for council approval.
Okay, Lynn and Mark, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you for having us this evening. We're really happy to present the Downtown Loop Streetscape Master Plan. Can you see my screen okay that's got the document up? Wonderful. So I wanted to mention that the plan is conceptual and it emphasizes creating an arrival experience as you enter the downtown loop and provides for a road diet to promote traffic calming and provides pedestrian-friendly streetscape amenities to encourage visitors to stop, park, and shop in the downtown loop area. So this evening, I'm going to quickly go through the Downtown Loop Streetscape Master Plan. And I just wanted to mention that my copy of the master plan might be a little bit more up to date that I'm showing on my screen than the hard copies that the Planning Commission members do have. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started. John had mentioned the purpose of the project, but just to reiterate that, there's many ideas illustrated in these conceptual plans that were discussed in the approved 2010 Downtown Strategic Master Plan and have also been enhanced by public input during the Sharonville 2030 Comprehensive Plan process, as well as the ideas from our landscape design and engineers from the Klingers Group. So regarding to the study area, you'll see it's within the red dashed area and focuses on the streetscape of Reading Road and Main Street with the emphasis on the 3 blocks within the downtown loop area, and that's in the center of the screen there. So on sheet 1.02, has our existing condition summary. I'm not going to read these tonight. It's going to be easier once I get to the plan sheets in a couple of pages. I'll be going through this summary, so it'll be easier to take a look at that and go through that when we take a look at the plan sheets. So this sheet 1.03 discusses the existing traffic patterns. And what you'll see on here is there's existing curb cuts shown in black. You can see them all along Reading Road and Main Street, and those really limit the opportunity for on-street parking. The traffic flow, as you all know, there's 3 lanes of one-way traffic throughout the loop, which does really promote fast driving traffic. Also, you'll see that there's red dots with arrows. Those show the direction of the traffic and also where there's significant turning traffic and backups. This is an existing parking sheet. It shows the existing parking located within the loop area. Currently, there's 273 parking spaces within the loop. You'll see the light blue along Main Street is on-street parking. The area in the orange along Reading Road, that's also on-street parking. However, it is restricted hours for parking there. In the green area, that is existing off-street parking. So existing total parking spaces, we have 273. So I wanted to start getting into the existing conditions plan sheets. So when I mentioned earlier, when there was a summary sheet, this shows it the same basic existing summary just on the plan. So you'll see that the roadway is 3 lanes of one-way traffic. The sidewalk consists of pavers, which are in the orange along the side of the road. And there's those pavers are uneven, which really creates a tripping hazard. There's also concrete, which is the buff beige color along the sidewalk. And the concrete there is cracked, and it also has inconsistent score jointing. The curb ramps that are located at the intersections are not ADA compliant currently. And also along the streetscape, there is a lot of overhead power lines and poles. There are also existing trees located near these power lines that are really too large to be located near these power lines. Moving on to sheet 1.07, regarding lighting, after talking with the city and really kind of understanding the lighting in the area, the light posts all need to be replaced within the downtown area as well as the conduit. There's really interesting history markers located at Creek Road down by the depot square. They're medallions that are in the pavement that have history of Sharonville on it. And they're really interesting, but seems like you don't really notice them because they're in the pavement and they're really hard to read. So it'd be nice if we could repurpose those. And also the existing site furniture, the planters, the benches, and the trash receptacles, they are dated. So it'd be nice to upgrade those, maybe apply some branding to those. So that's a quick summary of the existing conditions. So now we move into the proposed street diet summary. And again, I'm not going to go through these word for word. We'll do it when we get to the plan sheet because it'll be easier to understand. What I did want to mention though is when we're proposing a street diet, what that means is instead of having 3 lanes of traffic, we'd reduce the road to 2 lanes of traffic, and that would allow for slowing the traffic down, allowing for curb bump outs to create parking areas, as well as for safer pedestrian crossings across the street, and also provide for wider sidewalk areas. So now I'm going to show the proposed parking area within the loop. So by creating a road diet with going down from 3 lanes to 2 lanes, we've added parking along the roadway edges. And what we've done on this proposed parking layout is if you look on Reading Road, on the existing conditions, we had the parking on the east side of the road. Our proposed parking has, you can see in dark blue there, we shifted it to the west side of the road. The reason why we did that is earlier I mentioned there's a lot of existing curb cuts, and there's less curb cuts on the west side of the road. So that's why we moved the parking to the west side of Reading Road to gain additional parking spaces there. We've also added additional parking spaces on the west side of Main Street. And then we've also added parking in the dark green behind the Blue Goose as potential parking as well. So in essence, this road diet, we've created 26 extra parking spaces within the downtown loop area. With so our total parking is 299 spaces within the area. So now we'll get into the proposed streetscape plan. So I am on sheet 2.03, and what I wanted to mention on this sheet is right there in the center, we're proposing to have a pocket park with plantings and pavers and art installation. It's a nice area to welcome you into the loop, and that's would be a nice area for a pocket park. Now we get into the main part of the loop area at the north end there. And you can see on the plan view that we've reduced the traffic lanes from 3 lanes to 2 lanes around the loop. And you can see the parking spaces there on the west side of Reading Road. And what this also offers is bump outs. You can see we've got some bump outs in the yellow. They're shown kind of in yellow areas and up here with some paving. And what those bump outs offer, they don't just buffer the parking areas and provide for parking areas. They also provide opportunities to install rain gardens and provide for stormwater mitigation. You'll see starting up at the north end, you'll see the red bar across the road. One thought would be to provide a gateway arches at both ends of the loop area to really welcome visitors into the downtown loop area. Also along the streetscape, you can see the trees that we have here, the green trees. We're suggesting to propose short street trees that would be appropriate near overhead power lines and also be placed in a more organized fashion while also avoiding blocking views to businesses. I think street trees are really nice to add into a streetscape to really provide scale to the pedestrian experience and the overall streetscape aesthetics. You'll also see on this plan along the streetscape, you'll see a lot of tan and dark gray. What we're proposing is that these sidewalks would be all concrete. That way it minimizes the potential to have differential settlement between pavers and concrete, as well as being easier to maintain. So our thought for the concept would be to really brand the streetscape and have your downtown be a destination that really speaks to Sharonville. So if you can see, we've got some dark gray pavement areas that look like your logo. So one thought on this concept would be to incorporate that logo with the curved lines into the streetscape area to give it some, branding opportunities and interest in the streetscape. Let's see. Let's go to sheet 2.05. We'd also, along the streetscape, want to provide for new curb ramps at the intersections to make sure that we're going to be ADA compliant. For the crosswalk areas, instead of just having painted lines, we could have a piano key crosswalk. Just really creates another aesthetic to the loop and the streetscape. Also, it'd be nice to have planters and benches that would have more of a modern flair and incorporate city branding, such that if we had benches or a trash receptacles, we could incorporate the logo into those to further promote the brand for the community. I also wanted to mention here along Creek Road, you can see it looks very different than the other streets. Our thought was at either end of Creek Road, we could incorporate removable bollards at the end of the street that would be able, so that we would be able to temporarily close Creek Road to vehicular traffic such that the city could have any type of pedestrian festivals through there, which might be nice. Kind of like, you know, Santa Monica, if you've ever been there, where, you know, there's interesting paving pattern on the road. Again, we've got that curve in there as an idea to promote your branding of the logo. Also on Creek Road, you'll notice instead of it being 3 lanes, we have it as 2 lanes, and we've also incorporated a bike lane on the north side of Creek Road. You'll also notice on both ends of Creek Road, we are showing pocket parks at both ends. And those pocket parks are great areas where we could introduce benches, bike racks, as well as art installations. I mentioned earlier about the medallions that are in the pavement by the Depot Square. It'd be nice to elevate those, and maybe they're in one of these pocket park areas or any other type of art feature. I also wanted to mention the top right of the screen. You'll notice that we've added in the new roadway design at the intersection here along Sharon Road. And that's taken from the FEMA grant to minimize flooding in the southern end of the loop. I also wanted to mention down here along Reading Road with the road diet and how we've reorganized the lanes. We're actually able to have a longer right queue lane to turn right onto Reading Road. To turn right from Reading Road onto Sharon Road. I think I went through most of the plan view comments summary. And then in regards to the last 2 pages of the booklet, these are just some imagery sheets to show you what the different crosswalk could look like. The piano keys in the top middle here for the crosswalk type. And then you'll see kind of some examples also in the bottom or in the middle here where it shows colored concrete with aggregate texture. That's what I'm kind of talking about when I showed that dark concrete along the sidewalk. It could be an aggregate finish, it could be a colored concrete, but it provides movement in the sidewalk and creates aesthetic appeal. And then in the bottom middle and on the bottom right shows, you know, what it could look like with a bump out with a rain garden in it to help with stormwater mitigation. And then this page here shows how you might be able to brand, you know, put branding on top of trash receptacles, as well as the benches, and what the light poles might look like. That light pole we were suggesting could look like the light pole that is at the administration center. And then this is the streetscape planting palette that we would suggest perhaps to use for the project. As you're seeing for the street tree, it could be an ivory silk tree lilac. It's a very hardy, urban tolerant tree that would fit well in the urban condition. And then some other plantings that don't require too much maintenance and are drought tolerant and would also work in a rain garden setting. So I did want to mention that all of the improvements that you've seen today in the streetscape plan, you know, they can be utilized however City Council and Planning Commission would like to have seen. You know, we could take pieces and parts and move forward with those, you know, in different phases. And also through this plan, you know, this is conceptual, so everything will need to go through, you know, engineering design to move forward. So with that, I don't have anything else. If you all have some questions.
Questions. I'll just have a comment. I think it looks fantastic. I think we were a little concerned about some of the road diet issues, and so we kind of threw those out there early on to get some feedback, and so far it has been positive. You always worry sometimes when you tell people we're going to cut your lanes off one way or the other, but I think we've heard good feedback from that standpoint, from the standpoint of safety, from the standpoint of businesses along there that kind of hope people slow down a little bit and recognize their business a little better. And it also provides some of the issues that we've had recently with downtown and some of the parking issues that have occurred. So I'm a big fan of the work you did, and thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, one comment, if I may, Mr. Mayor. I think the overall project, I think it's great. I have concerns with two items here. The pocket park at Reading Road and Lebanon Road, I think it's kind of a dangerous, if not unsafe or unhealthy situation there. Throw that out right there. And also the 10 spots we're losing on Reading Road between Creek Road and Sharon Road. I know we're working on that lot behind the Goose, and I see there's a lot of activity in the court as filing in tax foreclosure. I gave Mr. Lucas some information on that here at the last meeting. I'm not really sure where we're at, but with the foreclosures and everything stalled, I think they had the court scheduled for the 27th of May, but that's been postponed. It's undoubted. I don't know how it will get started again. That's my two concerns with the project right there.
I'll go back to the first question that you had regarding the pocket park here along Lebanon Road and Reading Road. If you see the note at the bottom, this plan was an engineering study that was completed by CDS, I think about 10 years ago. And I think to your point, maybe some reevaluation may need to occur. We wanted to incorporate it into this plan to get feedback.
That pocket park can just be a city amenity. It doesn't have to be an active pocket park. It could be a statue of the mayor, for instance. It could be, it could be, it doesn't have to be an act, but I agree with Bill that.
I was thinking maybe Mickey Mouse or something. That would be.
There you go. But I agree with Bill that's making an active pocket park would be a little bit foolish, just for the safety perspective. To Bill's other comment, we are monitoring that land in back of the Blue Goose actively, and hopefully that we're able to acquire that at some point. But I share the mayor's thoughts that I like how the plan adds parking, especially in front of the Fine Arts Center, the Cliffs Hardware, and a little bit in front of already. I think that'll be a great benefit to those areas, and just nationwide. Speed, the level of speed that we see in our downtown is really frowned upon, and so I really like the addition of or the subtraction of lane because it will slow traffic down, and that will benefit the businesses as well.
Yeah, and Bill, just to follow up on your comment, I don't think I was picturing that convergence of at Lebanon and Lebanon Road and Cincinnati Dayton Road and Main Street as a park kind of setting, but more as like where people congregate, but more of a gateway kind of usage, so that it would be some green space, but more of a I hate to use the idea of like Times Square and a big building, but because that's not what it's going to be, but something of that nature that would be an attractive, this is the gateway into the city kind of piece. So it wouldn't necessarily be a park space just because of the road, but I think the way it's laid out is appropriate as far as looking forward to acquisition of that property that is there, and the creation of some type of monument. Not to me, Jim, that would exist there. Maybe so. Yeah. So I think your comments are valid, but I still think the imagery that's there is appropriate, I think, for what we would like to see happen with that space.
The other thing I really like is I was trying to advocate for Creek Road to be closed off permanently between Main and Reading, and I lost that battle. I thought we had enough access points between the loop, but I really liked the addition of the bike lane, and as well as the ability to close that off when needed for city events. So I like making that a little decorative, as you've shown, especially as you come down Creek Road into our downtown. I think that will really look beautiful. That's the other huge benefit of this plan that I see.
The only concern in a way that I have is with the bump outs. I know if you go south on Reading Road into Reading, they've got those, and it makes traffic very narrow to where you're almost in the next lane. That's the only concern I have.
So my comment to that, and I don't know if Mark has a comment, but the lane widths through the loop, we have to have one lane that's 12 feet wide, and then the other one that we're showing is 11. And I can't remember off the top how wide the lanes are right now, but we wouldn't be reducing them in width any more than that. Mark, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I'll just add that we would provide a little bit of offset from the edge of curb to the actual edge of the travelway, just to make sure that there's adequate distance for vehicles to go through there without feeling like they have to shy away from the curb.
I'm just concerned that if anything gets put there, I mean, I know we've had some of our planners and benches hit in downtown Sharonville with the current traffic flow that we have. And I'm just, like I said, I'm just a little concerned as far as how the traffic pattern looks like. It just looks like it may be narrow to me, but drawings are always deceiving compared to what's actually done.
It is a balance for sure, because we want to make sure that we're providing adequately for the vehicular traffic that's going through. But there's also a sense of trying to make the roadway feel somewhat restricted in width to help control those traffic speeds going through there. But
well,
I certainly hear what you're saying.
Yeah, because I know, like right now, if any of these like the Blue Goose or Already Cafe, if they get a food delivery, if they don't park in the parking lot, they're going to be parking in the left lane in front of the business to unload their goodies. Because I mean, I've seen it whenever Rockefeller's Pizza was to get a delivery, they'll just unload right there in the right lane of going south on Reading Road. So, you know, if that happens, then you're down technically to one lane. So,
well, I mean, I hear you, but I mean, I think it would be foolish of us to make a determination on how we want to plan our roadscaping because people don't want to follow the rules.
well,
I mean, I mean, I don't, you know, it's not legal to stop in a through lane. It's not legal for them to do it now, and it wouldn't be legal for them to do it then. And we certainly would enforce that. I mean, the idea being, and I would think that by reducing that lane so that you don't have an extra one where somebody can feel comfortable doing that, you're going to see less of it. I mean, I think the fact that people or somebody can pull up in front of Rockefeller's and do that now, or pull up in front of Already and do that now, it's because they can, because there's enough looseness in that 3 lanes that exist there, or that they can feel comfortable doing that. I think when you get rid of that lane and there's only 2, there's going to be a lot less of a comfort level for someone to take that shortcut and do something along those lines.
like I said, drawings are a lot different than what actually happens. So.
Lynn, Mark, I just had one question kind of along those same lines. As far as this concept goes, the only places where road width would be narrowed is at the bump outs, correct? I mean, the actual pavement widths. that correct?
That's correct. I think the remaining pavement width, where we are providing 2 travel lanes instead of 3, would be utilized for on-street parking.
Gotcha.
If I may, is also one more other comment. I like the huge improvement on northbound Main Street, turning east onto Cornell. I've seen school buses struggle with that corner for years. I think that's a big plus, widening that turn at Cornell Road.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that.
I had a couple comments and some questions. So, I mean, I think the addition of any kind of space for outdoor dining is really smart now, not only obviously just because of what we've talked about with coronavirus and this sort of stuff, but I think that, you know, if we want to attract more eateries and restaurants to some of the properties that are down there, the more space they can have out on the sidewalk, the better. And, you know, I would say probably to the point that if we had to choose between outdoor garden space and outdoor seating space, I would lean towards more outdoor seating space if that was possible. You know what I mean? If we were choosing between the two. I like I think like the ADA stuff, making that compliant, as well as dealing with the trees that we have in the sidewalk. Those are both a lot of safety issues, especially for bikers with the trees and stuff that sort of randomly pop up in places and various poles, right? So I think that's a good thing to get rid of. I guess 2 questions, sort of, you had mentioned with the lighting and the conduit and stuff that you know, in discussions with the city that sort of has to be done. So that represents about 20% of the cost of the downtown portion of the project at about $1 million. So I'm just curious what makes that a necessity that has to be done as part of this, or I'm just curious what the reasoning there was.
Well, because if you change the lighting, you'd basically to do the lighting, you have to rip up the sidewalk to put the conduit in and to put the new electrical in and to put all the light posts in and the bases. So if you don't do the lighting, when you do the streetscape improvements, you're just going to be digging it up to put in the conduit and the electrical wiring in the future. So it makes sense to, it's a big ticket item because it's in a big area. I'm going to go back to the parking block area. The lighting that would also need to be upgraded is even down in this bottom of block B here. There's parking poles in there that would need to be upgraded at the same time. So that's why it contributes to it being a large expense, because it's the whole entire area needing to rip up the pavement to work on the conduit and the light poles.
Okay.
Sam, hey, Sam,
yeah.
Also, I can probably shed a little light too. A lot of that underground wiring is old and outdated, to where our service department, along with certified electricians, have issues trying to get power going to some of those lights also.
Okay.
I've heard a little bit of duct tape's holding it together also.
I might add that, to me, if you're going to redo the downtown loop, the lighting adds so much ambience, and it can do so much to increase the value of that whole development. I have no problem at all spending the money to do it, because I think it's important.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think I agree. I just wanted to see, since we said that it was necessary or required, basically, and it is a big ticket item, wanted to hear that. So I appreciate that. And I guess I don't know if this is maybe a silly question, but I'm curious, you talked a little bit about the, on the Depot Square there, improvements in that area. And one thing that I've sort of noticed walking by that is, our good friend, the Caboose there, is falling apart. And I don't even know, is that belong to the city? Is that privately owned?
The Caboose?
Yeah.
That belongs to the city, and we are in the process of looking at getting rid of that.
Oh, okay.
Sam, you can buy that and put it in your backyard.
Yeah, you might have. Yeah, right in the woods. It'll work great.
I have nostalgia. I played on that many times with my grandma when I was little. So yeah. Anyway, it's too bad.
It is.
Sorry to hear, but
it is beyond repair at this point. That is at all feasible. And honestly, I think based on what you've seen here, it's just not the vision of the city for the future. So we're looking at some removing that. It's just it might be more. It's not cheap to remove a caboose, apparently.
yeah.
So,
Well, anything's better.
That are interested, so.
Anything's better than it just hanging out there for sure. So okay, I was just curious. But yeah, I think other than that, I would just say overall, I mean, I think the plan is pretty amazing and good work.
Thank you.
Are there other comments, questions? Yep, great work. I like what I'm seeing. Is there a motion to approve resolution number 20-02? Yeah, so moved by Mr. Lucas. Is there a second? Somebody raised their hand. Second by Mr. Schutte. Any further discussion?
I just have
Roll
a
call.
question.
Yes, Mr. Lucas. Jim.
As part of this plan, is there going to be a staging plan in place? Obviously, we're not going to be able to do this all at one time, I wouldn't think. So are you guys working on a plan for staging this? Staging is probably not the best word, but
Phases.
Yeah, phasing. Yes.
We don't currently have it set up as phases. For the cost estimate that you have in front of you, we did kind of break it out to where it made sense of maybe where to start. You know, like one area you could do all of the outside loop area, the Main Street and the Reading Road, all as one swoop. And then come back later and do all the improvements along Creek Road. So we could really do it in phases in different ways. You know, maybe that's something that we work with John and Sarah on here to come up with maybe a phasing strategy.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Motion to approve. Mayor Hardman,
Yes.
Mr. Lucas,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Schutte,
Yes.
and Mr. Knight.
Yes.
Thank you all for your hard work. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You too, Lynn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I believe we had one other add-on item with regard to, was it outdoor dining?
Outdoor
Conditional use
dining.
issues?
Yes, you should have my screen now. Do you guys have it?
There you go. So can everyone, okay. So basically we have gotten, just in the past 3 days, we've gotten 2 requests from some established restaurants. The Athenian was one, and what is it? Not Murphy's Pub?
Macaulay's
Pub. Asking about establishing some outdoor seating areas, because with the distancing requirements for the inside, they could lose up to 60% or more of the interior space. So every restaurant's going to be different. So, you know, we already have this conditional use process in place now where folks come to the Planning Commission, get a conditional use permit for outdoor seating. And, you know, we only meet once a month, and we, you know, so, and a lot of places are doing some fast track things to get things like this approved. So one thing we thought about was, you know, if we do it where Planning Commission would give staff the authority to grant these conditional use permits, what kind of conditions do we want to put on it? And so I was just looking around today and I put this together, and the first 3, I think we would definitely want to apply, and that's to meet the Restart Ohio guidelines that the state of Ohio published applicable to all restaurants and bars. Meet guidelines, whatever they may be, of Hamilton County Public Health District, because they're the ones that actually do the enforcement of the state guidelines. And then any guidelines from the Ohio Board of Liquor Control. Everyone doesn't serve alcohol, so they may or may not be applicable. But some other things, you maybe the planning commission would consider, if you're inclined to do this, would be that if we issued that permit, that it would be temporary, maybe valid for up to 6 months after it was issued. We could also look at waiving the conditional use permit fee. That's $150. And, we could waive that because if we issued it on the spot, if we issued it in the office, there would be no meeting involved, no mailing of notices or letters to anyone. 3, that would add a condition, obviously, that outdoor area be maintained, which I'm sure they would. 4, that they could use the exterior premise of the property to accommodate the outdoor seating. And, there are different ways to look at this. Some places say that you can only use the parking lot. You can only use the sidewalk. You can only use a grassy area on the property. Every property, every restaurant area in town is different. Some don't have any parking. Some don't have any green space. Some don't have a sidewalk. It just depends. So I think best way would be to leave it open, that it would be on private property, and we would just work with those property owners rather than just have a blanket requirement that maybe everyone couldn't meet. And number 5, this is just for you to consider, that the outdoor seating area be limited or couldn't exceed 60% of the indoor food and beverage consumption area. Because like I said in the beginning, with these distancing requirements that are applicable to the inside, it seems like they will only be able to use approximately 30% of their inside space. So in order to accommodate that, who knows how long this will go on, we limit the outside to 60%. But that's just a thought. I mean, we don't have to do that. I don't know if anyone would come in and put 40 tables outside in a parking lot. But I can imagine a Bob Evans or a Cracker Barrel, possibly doing that. Right? They do have large parking lots.
And follow along that line of thought there, John. And I said there's a lot of unknowns on this thing, laying it out. I would suggest that instead of 6 months, I would maybe reduce that to 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
They give you just, if you have a problem with a specific area or specific business, that would allow you a chance to readjust that instead of giving them a blanket 6 months. That's my thought on that.
John, the only concern I have, you brought up about Colley's Pub. Where would they have the room to do that? Because there's a driveway not only coming in off of Field Dirtle onto that property, but there's also a driveway going around the back of the building that you can follow back out to Field Dirtle. And the other thing is with the Athenian, you've technically got 2 driveways in there, and you got the funeral home next door, then you got the flower shop, then the upholstery business, and plus you got people that live in the houses there that use that driveway also.
Right.
So I guess it would be more like, that's my concern, is where they would have the room. And if it's able to be done, I agree with Bill, as far as, trying it out for 3 months. But it's up to everybody on the board. We want to try to help our businesses and get operations back up and running. Maybe waive the $150 fee and, go from there. But I don't make that decision. You guys do.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's 3 months. It's a little short. We're just getting into May right now. I would say let it go till the end of the outdoor eating season, which is probably September.
And
I think anything we can do to help our small businesses maintain and provide and reduce the bureaucratic nightmare that this would cause in order for them to provide some service through this period is a step in the right direction. There would typically be a lot of other concerns we would have for outdoor dining. Like it has to be on paved surfaces. It has to be on, permanent, we care about what kind of structures they're eating off of. These are all things we would typically take into consideration. But I think in light of the emergency nature and the very limited time frame that we're talking about here, I am extremely comfortable with giving our community development team the authority with these basic parameters to allow during this emergency period to allow these administratively approved conditional uses based on these guidelines.
I agree with you. I think anything, we want these people to survive. I mean, they're struggling right now to survive, and I think anything we can do to get out of the way and let them do their business responsibly, I'm all for that. I agree with you.
Just a comment, if I can. I liked all this, obviously. What I would like to add, if we can, I talked with John about a month or so ago about this. If restaurants put out additional signage that technically may be against our code, let's not be aggressive with enforcing that. And I don't think anybody has yet, but I would love to add some kind of additional signage that they would be allowed to have as well, to advertise specials, to advertise anything that John can improve as part of this. I think it makes sense if we're doing this to add something to do with signage as well.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that 100%. And I said, I'm fine with 6 months. I just threw out the $3 just to be on the cautious side, but I have no problem with 6 months.
So let's add a number 6 that would say staff could also may also provide conditional permits for temporary signage of said businesses during this period of time.
And waive fees all the way?
It
On
waives
both?
the conditional use permit fee. I don't think there's any fees involved in signage.
Well, yeah, there is actually.
Yeah.
I mean, for the people that do actually come and apply for them, but there's a $40 fee for that.
For a temporary sign,
Right.
we'll waive that fee too.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't think we shouldn't be nickel diming these guys for 6 months. I mean, they need help.
Yeah. I mean, $200 for the permit and the sign. Yeah.
Mhm.
Let's help them out. Show that we care. I'd say waive all the fees.
I agree on the 6 month time frame, just because they may have to purchase some chairs or something, and if it's 3 months, does that make it harder for them to justify it, right?
Right. So I think we're comfortable with all of these, but I just want to zero in on that last one, number 5. And I threw out that example of a large restaurant with a large floor area, maybe with a large parking lot, putting a huge number of tables. I don't think anyone's going to do that, but I just want to make sure you're comfortable with that 60%, limiting it to that, whatever that 60% is on the inside.
Yeah,
I think you're handcuffing some of the little guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be true.
I think
Because I think the Athenian's only got a seating capacity of about maybe 40 people.
Right. Yeah, it's small. You're right.
And it's the same with Macaulay's.
Most of the places are looks like they're going to be limited to 50% of their allowed actual occupant load. So I think 60% is a generous number right there, personally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's them put the other half they can't put inside outside, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what I'm hearing is people would like to just get rid of it, and I'm fine with that. And just, I think I agree with John. I don't really see it being an issue one way or the other, because they're still going to have places where people can park. They're still going to have places for. So I mean, even the small, like just Athenian, is a perfect example. I mean, I can't envision. They don't have a whole lot of property outside of what exists to outdoor seating and stuff. So, but I'm fine with getting rid of 5. Is that where everybody wants to get rid of that requirement? And we'll we'll deal with it. I don't think it'll be a problem. So,
Yeah, we can always come back in a month and tweak it if we need to.
Right.
So we'll nix number 5 and add the language about the temporary sign for approval and the fee waiver for that.
yes.
Good.
Sounds good.
Anything else? Any other discussion on this front? Is there a motion to approve staff approval of these permit types based on the conditions set forth? So moved by Mr. Martin, second by Mr. Schutte. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mayor Hardman,
Yes.
Mr. Lucas,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Schutte,
Yes.
Mr. Knight.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Hey,
you.
John, just a
Sarah,
quick
John,
question.
thank you all for your hard work.
None of this has to go to council, correct?
You're still there too.
No, Planning Commission reviews conditional uses, and the mayor had sent out an email kind of describing that and gives, as long as they meet those conditions,
I just think we should inform council of what planning commission did before we advertise this, just so they're aware.
Gotcha.
Well,
Yeah,
so-
I can put this together in an email tomorrow and send it to you.
Thank
You
you.
want to send it to them.
Yeah, let's get that done. I think we did send that out to council, so I think they had an idea of what we're doing. All right. Any other questions? Any other matters to be brought before the planning commission? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn? So moved by Mr. Lucas, second by Mr. Schutte. All those in favor say yes.
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 All those opposed. We are adjourned. Thank you all and good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Yeah.
Josh.
Yep, you're welcome. Good night.
Bye-bye.